And that is our cue for Making Connections, our weekly interview segment. And before the break, actually, we heard Gayageum's 한조, 자진몰이, and that was performed by Jocelyn Clark. Now, that was a recording, but like I mentioned, we're in for a treat because she will be playing live for us in the studio in just a bit as well. So Jocelyn Clark, she really needs no introduction, but let me do so anyways. Alaska-born professor of East Asian Studies at 배제대학교 in Daejeon. And for 30 years, she's walked the way of the Gayageum, a zither-like Korean traditional string instrument. So we're going to talk to her about her journey and how she's learned to hear and play the sounds of han and hung, the emotions of deep sorrow and great joy which pervade Korean traditional music. So good morning and welcome back to the show, Jocelyn.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
It's great to have you back. Listeners, you may remember that she appeared on our Chuseok special show last year. So it's been almost a year since we got to see you and listen to your music. How have you been?
I've been great. I've just come back from a week next to my teacher in Jeonju. So get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, cook, then take a lesson, cook lunch, take a lesson, cook dinner, take a lesson. So it was very intense, but I think I'm really making progress on my work. Yeah.
Very well done. And then you woke up early again just to appear on our show. Thank
Yes,
you
I
for
did.
doing so. So let's talk about that because it's really exciting. You've had the honor of being recognized as the first non-Korean 가야금 산조 전수자 under 전북 무형문화재 제40호. So 가야금 산조, we know that. 전수자, that is a term that may be a little bit confusing to non-sort of Korean listeners or also people not very familiar with 국악. I looked it up and the English term would be kind of initiate, but you're not quite a student.
No, it's you. So this is part of this called the intangible human culture asset system, and there's different levels when you get. So you have to test to get into it in the first place. So the lowest
to become accepted as a student.
To get into the system, you also have to take an exam. So. And the first level is 전수자. So you have to, it's kind of like an apprentice, official, like government sponsored, not sponsored, but an official apprenticeship.
Recognized by the government,
Yes.
I guess.
So this is the first level. The next level where most people end up, the goal for most people is to become 이수자, which is the next level up. It's more like an official disciple or an official... this one's always so hard
Successor?
to translate.
Would you be kind of a successor
No, the
or not
successor
even?
is there's two more levels after
there's
that.
two more, okay.
So the first is 전수자, then 이수자, then there's the
삼수자? No.
this is 전수조교,
전수조교.
also called the 준인가 문화재. So this is like national treasure in waiting kind of thing. And then the highest is the 보유자,
the actual 무형문화재,
Yeah.
I guess, right?
So as a foreigner, there's laws around this, and as a foreigner, the highest level I can go to is this 전수자. I cannot advance anymore. So unless they change the law, I'm done.
There's actual law in this, or it's just kind of an unspoken law?
No,
it's a real law.
law.
Okay.
There's all sorts of laws about 국악 actually, which are really interesting. Like you're not allowed to use folk songs in advertising and stuff like this. But one of the laws is that it has to do with the what you have to do if you become 전수자 or what if you become 이수자. So you have to do a certain number of performances in 1 year. And you have to actually promote and preserve the tradition. So as a 전수자, I only have to do 3 concerts a year. But I'm in two numbers. I'm in the number 40 for 전라북도 and also number 23 for the national system, which is Sanjo and Pyeongchang.
So you're the first non-Korean to become a 전수자 as well. So you're kind of making inroads, and maybe it could be the changing of the law, or you might lead to that as well, right? I mean,
it could be. I'm not necessarily trying to do that, but also when I first joined competitions, the foreigners were not allowed to win any prizes.
Right.
So, after I started joining competitions, they started opening up competitions so that foreigners could also win a prize if they did win a prize.
So you are bringing about change already with this. I mean, but it's not something that happened overnight. You have been studying for a very, very long time.
I've invested.
Exactly. And so even becoming a 전수자 is very, very difficult. Like you said, you have to take a test to become a 전수자 as well. How does that come about then? I mean, did you have to study with the master for a very long time to even become a 전수자? So how does that happen?
So there's different numbers. Different numbers have different ways of doing it. In the case of my teacher in Jeonju, she decided who was going to, people actually they kind of decided for themselves. The people who were serious about studying got in, and the people who were sort of not as serious were out.
How many are becoming or did become 전수자 then?
There were about 20 of us, I think. There were about 20. And then most people have moved up to 이수자 now. There's a few stragglers that are still 전수자, and I'm 전수ja forever. In the case of the Pyeongchang and Sanjo in the national one, it was an exam there was about 40, 50 people that showed up for the exam. The exam's given every 2 years, so you have a chance every 2 years to take it. And I had to sing a tanga, a short song, and then sing an aria from one of the pansori repertoire, and also play Sanjo.
We've heard you play the Gayageum. I don't think we've heard you sing.
Yeah, well, you had a singer in with me last time, so
that's true. We had Laura Maffo, of course, an amazing singer.
So I wasn't going to sing.
Oh, but we have to hear you sing one day too.
It'll have to be another time. Right now, I'm really focused on making a CD for Sanjo, so I've really just, I've my Pyeongchang teacher's mad at me all the time because I've been slacking there, but I've really been working to try to get the CD out before the end of the year. So
very good.
Yeah.
Well, wish you the best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Let's go back a little bit for maybe our listeners who don't know about your journey with the Gayageum so well, because it is very interesting. You actually started with similar instruments, stringed instruments, in China and Japan. So I know you probably get asked this all the time, but what is it about the Korean instrument that made you stick with it for 3 decades now?
Yeah, the instruments all have the same background. They have the same history. They come from the same instrument, but the music is really different. And I think this is one of the best ways you can see the cultural differences for someone who's not really steeped in these things between Japan, China, and Korea. So I also came to Korea thinking that it would be kind of similar to guzheng, similar to Japanese koto, similar to Chinese guzheng, but it's really not. And in the beginning, I was like, oh, how can I understand this instrument? So at the beginning, I didn't understand, the modes. I didn't understand the rhythm patterns. And I didn't understand the sort of aesthetics of the instrument either. The other two instruments are so bright and they sound for a long time and they play, flowing water. And it's
they sound very different? Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, and the Gayageum, we stop each string ringing before we play the next string.
That's
so you
true.
only hear one string at a time. So it's almost like singing through strings. And there's the vibrato is very, very deep in many cases. And the other thing that's interesting about the Gayageum is we never play open strings. It looks like we're just playing a harp, but if you play it right, the strings are never open. You're always doing something on the left-hand side.
Strings?
Meaning you never pluck a string without doing something with your left hand to the string on the other side of the bridge.
Okay.
So always something's happening to the when you pluck the string, then we call it the sound after that is it decays into nothing, right? So always something's happening to the decay with you're doing something with your left hand to manipulate the sound of the decay. And
very busy then, huh?
Yeah, it's hard, and it's the more I study, the harder it gets because in the beginning everything's it's like a piano in a way, right? It's just open strings.
I'm making sounds,
and I can just make it in tune, and there's no problem. It's not like Gayageum where you have to find the note with
exactly.
It can, things can sound really bad when but Gayageum, so it seems easy in the beginning, and then the more you study, the harder starts to get with the sort of minutia of manipulating the sound.
I love how you described it as kind of like singing through the strings.
Yes, I think you have to sing along in your head. And there's, this sanjo, for instance, sanjo means scattered. It's usually translated as scattered melodies or scattered modes, meaning it was a kind of pejorative term stuck onto the genre from the court musicians. I thought it just sounds like scattered something. We don't know what's going on there. So this kind of music, it's now I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Well, actually, let me just read some of our one message in particular right now, because we asked our listeners to answer what's their favorite traditional Korean instrument. And we have one 7932 saying definitely the Gayageum. So 7932, you are in for a treat. I mean, we have lots
looking at the others. I'm also a big fan of ajing. If I didn't play Gayageum, I would play ajing. And actually, I have two ajing. I bought the instrument and play.
Yeah, you're playing in that
and
too,
I see
right?
also Haegum there.
Yep.
Listen to Kang Young-il says, and she's my friend, so I'm happy yes,
okay.
I'm happy that she's
Yeah, we
mentioned.
have a variety of instruments that are being quoted by you. But before we go any further in our discussion, let's hear that special performance, live performance from you, shall we? Jocelyn, would you like to introduce what you're going to be playing for us?
Okay, well, since I'm working on this Sanjo CD, I'm going to play Sanjo because it's what I'm really best at the moment. And we have a few minutes, so I'm going to improvise because you'll just cut me off when it's time to finish, okay?
Okay.
So Sanjo starts really slowly, and then it gets faster and faster. So it starts up kind of, there's sort of heartfelt stuff with the early Jinyangjo, and then gets faster and faster, and then you start to feel this hung, right?
Okay, so you
this
go
idea
kind
of han and hung is in there.
Excellent.
So I will try to play han in the beginning and get you to some kind of hung.
All right.
Which is hard. I mean, this piece is over 1 hour, so I'm condensing it down to 5 minutes or less. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So I'll allow you to get set up for that. And listeners, once again, if you are able to, do tune in through our YouTube so you can also watch her in action as well. She's going to be playing a little bit of the Gayageum's Hanjo, just an excerpt for us, taking us from Han to Hung. So Jocelyn, whenever you're ready. Okay. Woohoo! Thank you so much, Jocelyn. That was amazing.